finding the whole, right? Not the hole in the wall or the black hole, but the whole number. And this is the beginning of equations, so we're going to go over this again, actually, later in the year, because you need to know equations, and I'll review equations now. But let's first review percents of a number, right? Remember, of means multiplication. And remember, with percents, we need to make them a decimal. We never multiply a percent. So this would be 25% times 5. Okay, you can also have 25 hundredths times 5 over 1, whatever one you prefer, whatever you want to do, whatever's easier for you. Okay, so we had 0.25 times 5, and we get 1.25. 1 and 25 hundredths. Fraction decimal. Now what if we had this stuff? What if I had this? What if I had 25% of what number is 1.25? So remember, if we know how to translate, we can do this. Remember, 25% is 0.25. What is of? Multiplication. What number? We don't know. When you see this, when it says what number, we don't know what number. So we're going to put a letter. And I'm putting a W because we'll just for what number. You can put any number, any letter if you want. So 0.25 times W. And W is a variable. So when we do equations, we'll do math problems with variables. And variables are just numbers that we don't know yet. What number? We don't know. So 0.25 times W is. Now, anytime you see the word is, it means equal. Is means equal. So 0.25 times W equals 1.25. We just translated the whole problem. Remember, is means equal. So if you translate it, if you go slowly, you can translate this, and it'll turn into an equation, which I'll talk about in a minute. Now, there's something else you can do when you see a number next to a letter. So here we have a number, 0.25, and we're multiplying it next to a letter. So instead of saying times W, we can just we don't have to put the time sign, we can just put the letter. Because this means 0.25 times W. So let me go over that with a simpler number first. If you saw 3 times W, well, you can just say 3W. That means 3 times W. So what does this mean? 4W. 4 times W. What does this mean? 5 times W. Well, what does this mean? 8 times Y, whatever the number is. So this is called the coefficient, and this is the variable. The variable is unknown. Now sometimes right away you can find out what the number is. Right? And where's my eraser? There. For example, if I did 6W, need a better marker here, 6W equals 12. 6 times what number is 12? 6 times 2 is 12, so W would equal 2. So we found out what the variable was. So 6W just means 6 times W equals 12. But when we have a number and a letter, we like to put them together. Remember, a number and a letter together means multiplication. Very important to remember that. So let's go back to what we originally had. We had 0.25 W equals 1.25. We have an equation here. And we're going to go over equations soon. But let me just review this. An equation means you have an equal sign. Something equals something. There's two sides to an equation. Just put this dotted line. Here's one side, here's the other side. And the goal in an equation is to find out what W is, or whatever the letter is we're using. A lot of times, people use X. That's why we don't like to use the times sign a lot, because it could mean a variable. So that's why we use that dot. 6 times 5 instead of, because that could be 6x. But, you know, the letter could be X, could be Y, could be Z, it could be any letter. And remember, I picked the W because I used it for what number. So we know now we have two sides of the equation, and the equal sign divides the equation in half. Well, one side, the other side. And, by the way, it could also look like this. It's the same equation. You could switch it around. Same thing. Okay, so now let me give you an easy one, and we'll go back to that problem again. So let's say I had 3w, and this means what? 3 times w. So let's say I had 3w equals 6, and we know, just by looking at it, that w is 2. We know w is 2. A w2, right? 3 times 2 is 6. Now what you can do, let's say you didn't know it was 2, what you can do is the opposite operation. What's the opposite operation that you see here? This is 3 times w, so the operation is multiplication. The opposite is division. We're going to divide the 3 out. Cancels. Remember, the goal is to get that variable alone. The variable wants to be alone. So whatever you do to one side, we have to do to the other side. That's an important rule. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So we divided 3 on this side. We're going to divide 3 on that side. And w would equal 2. Going back to this problem now, we have multiplication here. We have 0.25w equals 1.25. We have multiplication. We're going to divide the 0.25 on both sides. It cancels. Remember the rule? Whatever you do to one side, do to the other side. So now you have 1.25 divided by 0.25. Remember the top number's in the box. And w will equal 5. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, so we gotta try this. What number is 30% of 12? First, show me how you can translate this. So, okay, what number? We don't know, right? We don't know the number. What number? We're going to put a W, or whatever letter you want. You want to put an X? You want to put an N? Some people put N's. So what number is W? Is. What does is mean? Equals. How do you translate 30%? 0.3 or 0.30, right? Of means times and 12. We just translated. So W equals 0.3 times 12. So all you have to do is 0.3 times 12. Right? And W would be 3.6. So 3.6 is 30% of 12. Try this one. 20 is 40% of what number? See if you can translate that. So, well, we all know what 20 is. It's 20. What's is? Equal. What's 40%? 0.4. What's of? Times. What number? We don't know, right? We don't know what number. So we can put a W or an N or an M, whatever. I'll put an N this time. Now, who remembers if you have a number multiplied next to a letter, what can you do? You can simply just put the number and the letter together. It means multiplication. Remember now, we want the variable alone. It likes to be alone. The variable does not like to be with any numbers. So we have to do the opposite operation. What's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. So we're going to divide the 0.4 on each side. That cancels. Who remembers the rule? Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So you have to divide on this side. So it's 20 divided by 0.4. Remember, 20 is in the box because the top number is always in the box. And remember in division, you can't have a decimal outside there, so we're going to move that over. We have to move the same decimal over. Let me bring this over. 20 is 20.0, so we move the decimal over. And we'll get 50. So 20 is 40% of 50. Okay, try this one. So right now, I'm really trying to see if you can translate and set up the equation. Because we'll do equations much later in the year. But if you can translate now, that's the most important part. So we know what 18 is. It's 18. What is? Equal 9%. 0.09. Not 0.9, remember. It's 0.09. Of means times, and what number we don't know. N or W, whatever you want to use. So we have 18 equals 0.09. Remember, anytime we have a number and a letter, put them together. The coefficient and the variable. What's the next step? You want the variable alone, so we're going to divide the 0.09 on both sides. Remember, that cancels out. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. So simply divide. What did you get? Okay, if you divide that out, you would get that N equals 200. Right? Let's do a word problem. Let's say you took 20 of the toys. Whatever the toys were, you took 20 of them. This was 90% of the toys. So how many toys were there? You took 20 of the toys. So what is this? This was also means is. So what is this? You took 20 of the toys. This, 20, is this, right? So 20 was is also equal. Was and is. 20 was, or is, means equal. 90%, what's 90%? 0.9 of multiplication and the toys. We can put a T if you want. How's that? It should be 20 equals 0.9T. There's our equation. Remember, equations have equal signs, and there's two sides. And again, sometimes you can see the equation this way, which we showed before. It doesn't matter which side. In fact, some students, when they see something like this, they just change it around. They just like it that way for some reason. Whatever way you like, do it. So again, the T must be alone. The variable must be alone. So we're going to divide because that's the opposite of multiplication. Cancels out. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. 20 divided by 0.9. And if you did it on this way, you just divide in 0.9 on that side. Same thing. So what answer did you get? Okay, so you'll get an answer like 22.2 continuing. It continues forever. Now remember in last video, what's the problem with that? The math is fine, but what's the problem? Can you have 22.2 toys? Right? Depends what the toy is, right? But usually if you have, let's say they were fire trucks or whatever, you had 20 of the fire trucks. Could there be 22.2 continuing fire trucks? No, it doesn't really make sense. But the math is right. It's just the question, you would say, doesn't make sense because of breaking the toys down. Now, if it was food, you can break that down into food. So the important thing here in this video is knowing how to translate. And we'll do equations later. But if you can do equations now, that's great. So great job.